Hey, welcome to the Buckeye Grove Rapid Reaction Podcast. We're not coming right out of a major event, but we are doing a little bit more of a season preview as we are less than 2 weeks away from the start of the season. I'm your host, Kevin Noon. I am joined by our fearless interns. I've got Keaton Masano and I've got Braden Moles with me, and we are sitting here at an eating establishment on the Ohio State University campus. We just got out of interviews for the final time this week. We will not see the team again until game week. Florida Atlantic, game 1, August 31st. So we're going to get right to questions right now because the purpose of the Rapid Reaction Podcast is to be quick, and you don't want to listen to me talk. So I'm going to go to Keaton first. You know, aside from the obvious storylines of Ryan Day and Justin Fields and things along those lines, what's been the most interesting storyline for you this fall?
I think it's definitely been the play of Josh Proctor. I mean, we've been hearing a lot from a lot of the players. Jeffrey Okudah pointed to it, and Damon Arnett just saying about his playmaking in the secondary. I think Okudah said he maybe had 8 picks so far this camp, and just that's something that this defense has been needing, just some playmakers in that secondary. And
I'm sorry. I jumped off your channel. You took a breath there. It's live radio almost. Keep going.
All right, yeah. So, yeah, obviously then on the offensive side, I'm really looking at C.J. Saunders, just his leadership role and just how he's going to be able to make an impact on the field after just his journey from being a walk-on to getting a scholarship to now being a captain. I'm just really interested in that storyline.
Braden, how about you?
And I think J.K. Dobbins is definitely one of the more interesting stories that came out of fall camp. I mean, if you have a guy that rushes for over 1,000 yards, you'd consider that season a success. But according to Dobbins, he thinks that was a failure. So just seeing how he's preparing himself for this season and wants to, go back to that level he had in his freshman year, I think it's really interesting how, he sees that as a failure, but, he's still working to improve this season.
Yeah, as for me, I'm not really sure what I'm most interested in. There's so much there. I mean, obviously I took the Ryan Day and the Justin Fields off the table, so I can't go with either of those. The running game, I mean, they lose so much in terms of the passing game. Dwayne Haskins is now a member of the Washington Redskins. I mean, they lose, their 3 top receivers, all guys who are captains, yet they turn around and they've got more receiver captains at this point. So, I mean, that's, pretty amazing right there. No, I think it's really going to be seeing what the offense is made of in terms of a run-pass, formula. How are they going to do this? We've seen Justin Fields in the black uniform, the no-contact jersey all along. So much of his game is about running. Where's that going to be? I mean, nobody's expecting Justin to be Dwayne Haskins in terms of throwing the ball, and I don't think people are necessarily expecting him to come in and be a fully developed Braxton Miller or Terrell Pryor in terms of running the ball. I think he's going to be the best of both worlds there, and I think that's going to be interesting, but it's really just going to come down to how aggressive are they going to be in terms of their offensive game plan, putting Justin Fields out there in harm's way as a runner. What's that going to look like? Because there's not a lot of established depth at this point. But we'll jump to the next question. What are you most interested in seeing in this first game against Florida Atlantic?
I'm most interested to see the depth at wide receiver. I mean, we know the top guys like KJ Hill, Austin Mack. We know those guys are going to produce. But just how often are they going to turn to some of the younger guys like Jalen Gill or Jalen Harris? C.J. Saunders, how much time is he going to get? What's his impact? I think that, and Garrett Wilson, obviously, that's the top flight freshman. So it's really going to be interesting to see how much they trust the young guys early and just what they can do once they see some playing time.
How about you, Braden?
One of the overarching themes of fall camp has been the amount of turnovers the defense has been creating. You listen to any of the coaches or players or even guys on the offense, and you're hearing about, this new mindset they have that's leading to all these turnovers. So it'll be interesting to see if that can translate to the field for that first game. Obviously, you always want to look at how many turnovers they're getting, but with this new focus on that, it'll be interesting to see if that actually translates.
I think I got 2 things. I think the first thing, so many clamored during the Urban Meyer years, why aren't you playing on any snaps under center? Are we going to see them go under center? What is that going to look like? What is that going to look like in the red zone? I have a feeling that Ohio State's going to get in the red zone a lot against Florida Atlantic. I think that it could be an offensive game there. I mean, I'm not really that concerned about Ohio State's chances in the game, but I think it's going to be an offensive game. What is that going to look like? And I think, secondly, the linebacker play. I mean, what is that going to be? There was a lot of criticism about just maybe how the scheme was set up, that they were playing too close to the line. We had the opportunity tonight to talk with Al Washington. I mean, if you listen to what he said and, you go back a couple days prior to when we talked to Greg Madison, I'm expecting some major improvements there. All right, third question here. The AP poll came out recently. Ohio State is ranked number 5. That seems to be a consensus, more or less. I've seen them anywhere from 4 to 6 in major polls. When I look at some individuals, I've seen Ohio State in the Super 16, the Football Writers Association, Super 16. I've seen them as low as 12, which doesn't necessarily make sense to me. But, the number 5 ranking, Keaton, is that too high, too low, just right?
I think it's just right. I mean, the teams that you have in front of them, I think they've been proven to be there in the top 4, and I think that just based off last season, you had the defense that was uncertain, and you're hearing good things from it, but haven't proven it on the field on game day yet. And then, obviously, when you're switching over from quarterback, that's a big position to be having a guy step into. I mean, you got a talented guy in Justin Fields, but when you don't see him put a whole season together yet, you just never know how it's going to turn out on the field. So I think 5 is a good place for the Buckeyes. I don't think it's too low for them.
Braden, how about you? I know I told you guys before we came on the air, don't agree on everything. It makes for boring radio, but you can agree if you think that's the case. But where do you think this number 5 ranking is?
So with that, I think Ohio State may actually be a little too high. So I think 6 or 7 may be a little bit more of an appropriate spot for them right now. So Day, even though he had those games last season coaching, still a little bit untested as a head coach. And I think you have a lot of players on the field who haven't exactly seen a lot of playing time that'll be out there. So I think the game against Cincinnati will be a good litmus test for where this team is at. So I think once you get through those first 3 or 4 weeks, then you can start talking about Ohio State as a top 5 team. But until we get to that, I think 6 or 7 may be a more appropriate ranking for them.
I'm going to throw a curveball at you. Michigan is ranked a couple spots below them at 7. Do you think Michigan needs to be above them at this point, or you think that maybe the Big Ten just doesn't have a team that needs to be in that top 5 right now?
I'm not sure the Big Ten has a team right now that is necessarily in that upper echelon, not with those Clemsons or Alabama. So I think maybe with the exception of some of the, the Nebraska at 24, I think most of the Big Ten teams are where they should be.
I'll jump in here. I think they're about right over at number 5 right now. I mean, I share some of the concerns that Braden has, but, we are talking about the back-to-back defending champions in the Big Ten, and while your ranking shouldn't necessarily be a direct reflection on what you did the year before, we know it is. We know that's how it happens, that brand names matter and everything else and along those lines. And, I'm not going to get too caught up on the 3 games that Ryan Day led Urban Meyer's team last year and say, well, look, it's a proven formula. He can do this. But I really do think that this team, especially returning 8 on defense, the guys they've got, they have more blue chip players on their roster than anybody else in America. Talent wins games. I think that when that all is said and done, I think that this team is probably properly ranked, but I think we'll get a real good indication after week 2 when they play UC. So we're going to jump to our final question here, and we're doing a prediction piece on Buckeye Grove a little later this week where we'll take some direct things in terms of Ohio State. I don't want us to scoop ourselves on this podcast and then nobody reads the story. So we're going to go a little bit bigger picture here. Who's the team in the Big Ten that you think that will surprise people? And a surprise doesn't necessarily mean in a good way. Maybe somebody that people are way too enthusiastic about who they shouldn't be. I mean, so you can go one way or the other. Keaton, go ahead.
I think this team is Wisconsin this year in a good way, because I think last year they had a disappointing season, definitely the start. And I think when you guys got guys like Jonathan Taylor at running back, and he's a proven playmaker, he's going to be one of the best players in the country. So you can rely on him when you're trying to get the quarterback position figured out. And then that defense, just been one of the best defenses in the Big Ten for a couple of years now. And I think they have the schedule that is difficult, but it's given them opportunities now to make some big wins in the season and just elevate their game and put themselves on a national level. And then with all the hype that's been given to Nebraska, I think that's probably put a chip on their shoulder for sure.
I challenged Braden on one thing. I'm going to challenge you here. Quarterback situation at Wisconsin. I mean, they've got Jack Cohn, did not look very good last year. I mean, they got a talented freshman in Graham Mertz. I mean, do you feel that way if they go with Jack Cohn? Because that's the way it sounds right now. I mean, a lot could change by the time they play Ohio State. But, if you look back at the body of work last year, do you feel that they can sit there and achieve some of these things with a quarterback who really looked like he had a case of the yips last year?
I think they'll definitely go with Cohn, and I still feel safe with them because I think you can rely on the running game until you get to those bigger games. And I think Wisconsin's coaching staff probably feels confident that with more experience, Cohn can get a little bit more settled in and then just be able to make enough plays. I mean, a team like Wisconsin, you can rely on the running game and have that defense. You don't need a quarterback who can be exceptional. You need a guy who can just make enough plays, keep the ball safe, and be able to score enough just to win some games. So I don't think you need an exceptional playmaker out there, but I think Cone, will settle in, and if he can't, then they'll turn to some of the younger guys who maybe can play for them.
Fair enough. Braden, your turn.
So I had alluded to it earlier, but I think Nebraska may be ranked and hyped up a little too much going into this season. They have a good recruiting class coming in at, I think, number 18 in the nation, somewhere around there. But, going 4-8 last season, I don't see the turnaround going from 4-8 to competing, in Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship. I don't see that quick turnaround that people are expecting. I think they could finish the season, above 500, maybe ranked near the end of the season. But as it stands, I don't think they're going to live up to the hype right now that everybody's talking about.
You seem to be one of the people that seems to remember how bad that defense was last year. The black shirts have not been in Lincoln anytime recently. You don't think that they're going to be able to make enough progress there to really compete for the West? Like
I said, they were not a talented squad last year. So while they're bringing in a decent class, I don't think that talent's going to be able to make up those 4 or 5 games they're going to need to really compete in the Big Ten.
I'm gonna jump in with Penn State. Penn State's really been kind of a sexy pick for number 2 or number 3 in the Big Ten East, and I really think that a lot of people feel like, once again, the East owns the West right now in terms of the Big Ten championship games and things along those lines. But I think the best teams, even a couple deep within the whole Big Ten hierarchy, are all in the East. But I'm just not feeling it with Penn State at this point. They lose a lot. They were really hit with the transfer portal. A couple guys decided to come back, but they got decimated there. Recruiting has been kind of a mess right now. I mean, we can all go back to James Franklin and his "we're not elite" whole tirade after Ohio State took it to him once again. I just don't know if they're going to be the team. I could sit there and I think I could pick apart any of the 14 teams in the Big Ten. I might have a hard time talking up Rutgers or somebody like that at this point, but I could really, I can find faults with a lot of teams. I can find faults with Michigan. I don't think that they have a running game. I think that they lose so much on defense that people are putting Don Brown ahead of the actual players that he's got. I mean, you need to have a great coach, but you need to have the athletes out there. Don Brown isn't playing. But I just think that Penn State has a lot of issues right now in terms of where they're going to be, and I think that they're going to probably come in a little bit below expectations. That's my guess. But we'll see, and that's what makes this all fun. I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to throw it back to each of you guys. Any final thoughts that you might have, or whatnot, and then we'll get going and get this up on the internet.
I think just final thoughts. I'm just really excited to kind of see on the Ohio State side just how much of this has just been blowing smoke at the reporters so far, and how much of this is going to translate to the field. So I'm just really interested to see on the defensive side the turnovers, offensive side, just how deep is this team, because we keep hearing that this is a deep team, this team's gelling. Just can't wait to see it.
Braden?
I think, you have a lot of new coaches, new quarterback. So I think while you're going to have a lot of the same players that are out on the field that were on the field in previous years, I think you're going to be looking at a really different Ohio State team, and it'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, I guess when it comes down to my final thoughts, I'm just really curious to see how everybody's going to react to Ryan Day. What's going to be the situation when the chips are really down on the table for the first time? I don't think we're going to see them, stress too much against Florida Atlantic. I think Cincinnati can apply some stress. You got to go on the road and go to Indiana, but we're really not going to see that until they go to Nebraska. And I guess, if you really listen to what Braden's saying, it may not be as big of an issue as we all think it is. We'll on a later podcast, we'll talk about trap games and things along those likes. But, I'm really going to be curious to see what happens there, because Ohio State lost 9 games under Urban Meyer. 9. That's it. So I don't think anybody really remembers what it's like to really have your feet to the fire. A 2-loss season, while they happened, were very rare. There were 1-loss seasons. There was an undefeated season in there. So that's what I am most curious about. But, we're gonna wrap it up here on the Rapid Reaction Podcast. I want to be sure to tell everybody that we have a great promotion going on right now here at Buckeye Grove. It is our Adidas deal. We are offering a year to new subscribers for $75. That's a 25% off savings. Plus, you get a $75 e-card to the Adidas shop. Use code Adidas and email me at Kevin at BuckeyeGrove.com with any questions. I want to thank a couple of our sponsors that help us out with the site. When you look at JFQ Lending out of Arizona, if you're looking to refinance, give them a call. They're doing great work, and I want to welcome Hague Water Conditioning back. They've been a longtime sponsor of ours as well. We're going to be rolling out some new pieces where they're going to be heavily involved involved with that as well. Hague Water Conditioning, they've been doing this for 50-plus years. Give them a call. Once again, I'm Kevin Noon here, publisher of BuckeyeGrove.com. Thanks for listening.